On October 28, 2025, the United States Supreme Court delivered a moment that stunned the nation and sent shockwaves through the legal and political landscape. The country watched in anticipation as the highest court in the land prepared to announce a decision that would impact millions of Americans and potentially reshape the future of gun rights in the United States. In a rare, unanimous 9-0 decision, the justices, spanning the full ideological spectrum from conservative to liberal, spoke as one on the fiercely debated issue of gun rights. Such unity is almost unheard of in cases this controversial, and it signaled just how significant the stakes were. The case at the heart of this decision, United States v. Hamani, challenged a federal law that barred certain individuals from owning firearms. The law had been the subject of heated debate for years, with critics arguing it was too broad and supporters insisting it was necessary for public safety. For decades, gun control has divided Americans. Some demand strict safety measures to prevent violence, while others defend the Second Amendment as an essential, untouchable right. The debate has played out in courtrooms, on the streets, and in the halls of Congress, with passionate voices on both sides. The idea that all 9 justices could agree here seemed impossible, until now. Their consensus surprised legal experts and everyday citizens alike, raising questions about what brought them together on this divisive issue. Their ruling forced a national reckoning over where government power ends and individual freedom begins. It challenged Americans to reconsider the boundaries between public safety and personal liberty, and to reflect on the values that define the nation. This decision isn't just about legal theory, it's about real people, like Ali Daniel Hamani from Texas, whose case became the center of this historic debate. Hamani's story put a human face on the abstract legal arguments, reminding the country that these rulings affect lives in profound ways. Millions of Americans suddenly found themselves reconsidering their rights and responsibilities. Families, communities, and lawmakers across the nation began to ask what this new precedent would mean for their daily lives and for the future of gun ownership in America. This ruling is a new chapter in the ongoing American story of balancing liberty and safety. It joins a long line of Supreme Court decisions that have shaped the nation's understanding of freedom, responsibility, and the rule of law. Let's break down what this decision means for you, your neighbors, and the country as a whole, and explore how it could change the conversation about rights, safety, and justice for years to come. At the heart of this case was a federal law, 18 U.S.C., paragraph 922 G3, making it a crime for anyone who uses or is addicted to a controlled substance to own a gun. This law was designed to prevent potentially dangerous individuals from having access to firearms. Even if you use marijuana legally in your state under federal law, you were still considered a criminal if you owned a firearm. This created a significant legal conflict, as federal law clashed with state laws that had legalized marijuana for medical or recreational use. Ali Daniel Hamani, caught with a gun and marijuana, found himself at the center of this legal battle. He argued that the government had no right to disarm him simply for using a substance, especially when he wasn't intoxicated or dangerous. His defense team emphasized that his use of marijuana was legal in his state. His legal team said the law was too broad, punishing people for status, not actions. They argued that the law unfairly targeted individuals who were not posing any immediate threat. This case highlighted the tension between federal authority and state rights, especially as more states moved to legalize marijuana. As more states legalize marijuana, millions faced a confusing paradox: legal at home, criminal under federal law. This inconsistency created a legal minefield for many citizens. People were left wondering how to navigate their rights and responsibilities under these conflicting laws. The Supreme Court had to decide, can the government take away a constitutional right based solely on lifestyle choices, even if those choices are legal locally? This case would set a precedent for how the Second Amendment is interpreted in the context of modern societal changes. Supporters of the law called it common sense. They believed it was necessary to keep communities safe. Opponents called it pre-crime punishment, arguing that it penalized people for what they might do, not what they had done. The stage was set for a historic Supreme Court showdown, one that would have far-reaching implications for the balance between federal and state laws. and the interpretation of constitutional rights. In the Supreme Court, both sides presented starkly different visions of safety and freedom. The government argued that keeping guns from drug users was a time-tested way to protect the public, citing old laws against arming drunkards or the mentally unwell. They claimed the restriction was temporary: stop using drugs, regain your rights. Hamani's team countered that history only disarmed people for dangerous actions, not private habits. They pointed to the court's 2022 Bruin decision, which demands that gun laws align with historical tradition. The challengers argued there's no precedent for disarming sober, non-violent citizens at home for using substances like marijuana. The real issue: should the government punish status or only dangerous conduct? The case became a test of individual liberty versus government overreach. The justices had to decide which vision would shape the future of gun rights. Before the Supreme Court stepped in, lower courts were deeply divided. Some upheld the federal ban, calling it a reasonable safety measure. Others, especially the Fifth Circuit, ruled it unconstitutional, citing a lack of historical precedent for disarming non-dangerous drug users. This split meant your rights depended on where you lived: legal in Texas, a felony elsewhere. Such inconsistency clashed with the idea of equal justice under the law. The confusion made it clear only the Supreme Court could settle the issue. The nation waited for a single, definitive answer. The stakes were high for millions caught in this legal limbo. The court's intervention would finally unify the law nationwide. In a landmark and unanimous decision, the Supreme Court struck down the federal ban on gun ownership for individuals who are unlawful users of controlled substances. This case drew national attention, as it directly challenged the government's authority to restrict constitutional rights based on personal behavior that isn't inherently violent or dangerous. The ruling sent shockwaves through legal and political circles, raising important questions about the limits of federal power and the scope of the Second Amendment. The justices determined that the law in question violated the Second Amendment, specifically because it failed the history and tradition test established by the court's earlier Bruin decision. This test requires that any restriction on gun rights must be deeply rooted in the nation's historical practices and legal traditions. After a thorough review of centuries of American legal history, the court found no historical precedent for disarming sober, non-violent citizens simply because of their private habits or lifestyle choices. The justices emphasized that the government cannot use vague or broad criteria to take away fundamental rights. The court drew a clear and important line. While the government can ban guns for dangerous conduct, such as being armed while intoxicated or threatening others, it cannot impose blanket bans based solely on someone's status as a user of a controlled substance. This distinction is crucial for protecting individual rights. The ruling strongly emphasized that constitutional rights, including the right to bear arms, cannot be revoked without specific, historically grounded reasons. The court made it clear that vague fears or generalized suspicions are not enough to justify stripping away these rights. By reaffirming the Bruin standard, the decision signaled the court's ongoing commitment to applying rigorous scrutiny to all gun laws. This means that future restrictions will face tough questions about their historical legitimacy and constitutional validity. Now, the government bears the burden of proving that any new or existing gun restriction fits within the nation's historical understanding of the Second Amendment. This is a significant shift in how courts will evaluate gun laws going forward. With this decision, the boundaries of federal power over gun rights have been redrawn, limiting the government's ability to impose broad restrictions without clear historical support. As a result, the Second Amendment's protection for law-abiding citizens is now stronger than ever, reinforcing the idea that rights enshrined in the Constitution are not easily taken away. Ultimately, this ruling set a powerful new standard for evaluating all future gun laws, ensuring that constitutional freedoms remain at the heart of American law and society. For millions who use marijuana legally, this ruling is transformative. No longer are they forced to choose between following state law and exercising their Second Amendment rights. The threat of federal prosecution for owning a gun while using state legal cannabis is gone. Veterans using medical marijuana for PTSD, for example, can now own firearms without fear. The decision brings legal clarity and security to countless Americans. But the ruling doesn't allow gun ownership for those actively impaired or using illegal drugs. Marijuana remains federally illegal. This decision only severs its use from automatic loss of gun rights. The focus now shifts to individual conduct, not broad categories. Laws that disarm entire groups will face much tougher scrutiny. The precedent could impact future cases involving other group-based restrictions. The court has made clear rights can't be stripped away by labels alone. The implications reach far beyond just gun owners and cannabis users. Even if you don't own a gun or use marijuana, this ruling matters. It's about the limits of government power and the protection of individual rights. The court affirmed, you can't lose a fundamental right because of who you are, only for what you do. If rights can be taken for one group, they can be taken for others. The decision challenges lawmakers to focus on actual dangerous behavior, not stereotypes. It strengthens the barrier between liberty and government overreach. Protecting one right, the court reminds us, protects them all. The framework that guards your neighbor's rights is the same one that protects yours. The Supreme Court's decision in United States versus Hamani is just the beginning. Thousands of past convictions may now be challenged and rights restored. Lawmakers will likely draft new, narrower laws targeting actual dangerous conduct, not broad categories. Other federal gun restrictions like bans for nonviolent felons will face new legal challenges under the history and tradition test. The Bruin Standard is now the anchor for all future gun law debates. The focus will shift from modern policy preferences to historical precedent. For Americans, the rules are clearer, but the debate over gun rights is far from over. The next chapter in the story of American liberty has just begun.